Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to SADS Facebook Live Land, or good evening, good night, good morning, depending on where you're at across the globe. I'm Mike Eckerman, genetic cardiologist at Mayo Clinic, and delighted that you are choosing to spend the next 30 to 40 minutes with me and with the LeMoyne family, which I can't wait to introduce you to in just a few minutes. We are the last, almost the last day of October, and this is our last focus on National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month, which has been for the month of October. And many of you have joined us for our previous episodes with Dr. Robert Campbell, and last week with Felicia. That was wonderful. And now shortly with Kevin and Anne LeMoyne. So welcome on behalf of Alice Laura, our CEO of the SADS Foundation. Thank you for joining us in this way. This is Facebook Live number 36. Can you believe it? And we've had over 110,000 views. I'll start with some, I would say, bad news. We have set a record since the pandemic began. Yesterday alone, the most COVID-19 cases ever recorded in a single day in the United States at 88.5 thousand cases. Worldwide, we are past 45 million cases, over 1 million deaths. United States, we are going to cross tomorrow probably 9 million cases, and we've had 229,000 deaths. We are almost approaching 1,000 deaths a day. That's the bad news, and I'll show you the emphasis of the bad news. Check this out. So that's the Johns Hopkins COVID-19 tracker for the United States, and you see over here, that's not good. That is now the highest peak that we've had, and so we've got to get our game on. We need to do the right things. Get the mask on. I don't suggest wearing this one. My longtime, my lover, Carla assistant, give me this one, but I don't know that this will actually work for the coronavirus because the Vikings offensive line can't stop anything. So I don't know why this mask would stop the virus, but maybe you want to wear this one. Oh, look at this. Oh, check that out. From the SADS Foundation, we have our SADS Foundation mask. I just got mine in the mail yesterday. So put the masks on. I don't care which one it is. Use them. Wear them. I mask, you mask. We all mask together. Wash your hands. I've got it right here. Do it. Stay 6 feet apart when you can. And we're going to get through this, but we need to sort of buckle down, because the good news is the death rate is way lower. In Mayo Clinic, Rochester, Minnesota, we're now at 3,449 cases, but only 30 deaths. That's less than 0.9% now. That's almost 10 times lower than the death rate in United Kingdom. So when these cases come in at a steady pace or less, we know how to take care of this SARS-CoV-2 pandemic in each person most of the time. Risk factors, yes. Long QT Cpvt Brugada syndrome, remember, not a risk factor. And so, but we can handle it when it comes in steadily or less. But if we get overwhelmed, if the healthcare systems get overwhelmed, the death rate will start to rise again. So that's just a couple things on COVID-19. I see some of you joining us. Ireland's on again, and some of the regulars, great to see you, and all of you everywhere, welcome. And bring your questions. We're going to have time for questions, but before coming to your questions, in this final episode of Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month, let me bring on and have Aaron bring on two very special people and the wonderful LeMoyne family, who I've come to know and really appreciate these past 3+ years. So there they are. There's Kevin and Anne. Anne is an RN and Kevin is a VP at Coke, one of my most favorite museums in all of Atlanta and the world, the Coca-Cola Museum. You got to go there. My kids got sick as can be going through the Coke Museum, trying every single Coke pop that day. But they had a blast. So, Anne, Kevin, welcome to SADS Facebook Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's great having you. And take us back. I mentioned having come to know you for 3 years now. Like many people with sudden cardiac arrest awareness month, their story starts in tragedy, as does yours. And if you will, would you bring us back to when it all began, for when everything changed so dramatically and tragically for the LeMoyne family?
Yes, absolutely. So a little over 3 years ago, our middle son, Matthew, had passed away in his sleep. He was a seemingly healthy 14-year-old athletic teenager who at the time had zero health issues, you know, that we were aware of, and he passed away in his sleep. And you know, of course we were devastated, but we were shocked, because we were that healthy family and we just, you know, had no idea what was going on. So about 3 to 4 weeks later, we, through a family friend who is a pediatric cardiologist, he got us aligned with Robert Campbell, who is a doctor here, a pediatric cardiologist here in Atlanta, and Sibley Heart Group, yeah. And we got our other 2 children in to get a cardiac workup done, and our younger son, Nathan, actually showed some clinical symptoms, I guess you could say, of lung QT syndrome. And our daughter appeared fine. So moving forward from there, our youngest son was put on a beta blocker. And both of us went and saw a cardiologist, an adult cardiologist, and my EKG showed some borderline abnormalities, but nothing really significant. And so I too started on a beta blocker. The whole family did genetic testing, and which showed nothing, so no findings. So from there, we continued for about a year, and then it was recommended with us and with Dr. Campbell to get a second opinion, and that's when we went up to Rochester, Minnesota, and saw Dr. Ackerman and got a second opinion. And from there, we are still waiting. Yeah.
Not waiting on you. You and your crew have been great.
Yeah.
But just waiting on answers that just haven't come, which I know that's true for a lot of families. So.
Yeah.
And what's that like for the 2 of you, with the non-answers or the borderline answers or the not sure answers? What does that do to a husband and wife sort of resilience meter? I bet it challenges it a lot, doesn't it?
For sure. You know, we've had a lot of, you know, even aside of the trauma of Matthew, you know, many days of just walking around on eggshells, not knowing. I mean, of course, we know there's something wrong, you know, after losing a child. And, you know, we even after looking into Matthew and you know, at his genetics, and there's been no findings, it's like you still know there's something wrong, and it is hard not knowing. But I guess moving forward and knowing that, you know, even not having the findings, but knowing that if your child is, you know, well treated and you know, compliant with their medications and their treatment, and you know how to save a life through CPR and AED training. And yeah, you have a game plan. They've got a medical treatment plan at school, and they've got their buddy system when they go out into the community, when they're outside of your home bubble. You know, life is manageable, but you know, you always want answers, of course. So.
And you know, I was thinking as you were sharing your story that for many families, when they lose a loved one and there's no answer, and we want answers because we want closure, but more and more as we're in 2020 and close to 2021, we're to a point now where there's almost a silver lining, in the sense of when we turn every stone over, and when a medical examiner can't tell us why Matthew died, and when our genomic investigations can't tell us why Matthew died, or haven't told us so far, in those scenarios, we've actually never had in 20 years plus now a second tragedy. You know, so almost in the sense when no answer is emerging for the one who died, I'm not saying that that's our best answer, but it sometimes seems to end up being the best answer for the rest of the family, because for whatever reason, that becomes Matthew's tragedy only, and not potentially a warning for his siblings or his mom and dad. And that's, you know, a bit of the silver lining, and something that's so awfully awful for you folks.
Part of that is, you know, we feel so blessed to have encountered Robert Campbell, you, just the level of expertise that you all bring to your craft. And there's a little bit of solace in that, to understand they're in the best hands, and you have a game plan, and you work the game plan. And that's where it goes.
In your journey, you mentioned Dr. Campbell, and he has been one of, you know, I mentioned when I interviewed him a couple weeks ago now, one of my most favorite persons in this entire field of mine, a brother, maybe a father figure, but he doesn't like that because that makes him, Dr. Campbell, feel a little old. But such an incredible person who I treasure and love. SADS Foundation, where did you all in your course discover us in the SADS Foundation, and what has that meant to you in this journey of yours?
Yeah, I think for us, it started really early after Matthew died. We were, you know, thankfully we were connected into Sibley Heart Center through a family friend of ours, Denver Sally. And as we started to learn more about what could have happened, I just started to kind of research stuff online. And I came across SADS one night, and there's a contact us, you know, spot, and I hit contact us, and I gave them our information. Within just a day or so, you know, a gentleman by the name of Alan London, who I know served on the board at SADS. I don't believe he's on the board anymore. I think he's retired at that point from that. But Alan called, and Alan had a similar story, shared a similar story in life. So he lost a son. I believe his son's name was Michael. He was young. They were swimming. They were on a vacation, and he lost his son. And they tried to do all the things they could do to revive him, and CPR and all of that. And unfortunately, they weren't able to save him. So Alan's story was very, it's kind of like looking in a mirror, if you will. So anyways, that was a great 45-minute discussion just to understand, hey, it's not just us this happens to, or this could happen to, and everybody has a story to tell. From there, we have done a lot of work in our community. We started this foundation called Lovin Every Day Foundation, and moving from a personal side of the impact that SADS had for us, they've been just a great partner for us as we've tried to raise awareness and educate the community on SADS conditions and on you know, cardiac issues, CPR, AED. We utilize so much of what SADS does to help communicate that to our supporters as well. And really, at the end of the day, we just want more people to understand it, to know about it, to know what to do, not be afraid, don't fear the AED. understand how to do CPR, and just raise that level of education and awareness. And SADS has been awesome for us as well in that regard.
Kevin and Anne, Lovin Every Day Foundation. I love the name. Tell, some families, we all channel our grief and energies in different ways. Not everyone starts a foundation after, you lose Matthew. What were your conversations like around the dinner table, the two of you, or wherever you take your date night at, that made you say, hey, let's do this? How did that come about?
That's a great question. You want to answer that? That's a great question.
We knew that we needed to have an outlet, and we knew that we needed to make a difference. And, it wasn't anything, it was something that kind of flourished over time. And, we didn't really know how to go about starting a foundation. It really kind of seemed overwhelming, honestly. But it really wasn't a dinner conversation. It was more something that I think we would, talk about more. I think in your office here, we would sit here and talk about it, and it kind of like one idea built upon the other idea.
We let it marinate for a while, and then we'd come back to it. And
and I think we were like, I don't think we got it in us to do it. And then once we started putting more thoughts down on paper, we're like, I think we got this. I think we can do it. And then the name Lovin Every Day, Matthew was an individual that, and I don't know if it's because he had a short time here on earth, but he literally did love every day and made the best of every day here while he was here. And the Lovin Every Day just was very fitting. And
we want people to do that. We want people to just enjoy their time here, right? Be grounded in something beyond just themselves, and enjoy life for what it is.
Well, I love it. And you had mentioned a little bit, Kevin, sort of the pillars of Lovin Every Day Foundation, and we're sort of remind of what you guys do, because you're doing it so well. And those three things really is what Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month are all about. So walk us through them.
So early on, we knew we wanted to do one thing. And then as we started to think through it, we got to how do we complete the play. So there's three things that we do. The first one is provide AEDs to families and community organizations that are in need. Access to these things are critical. The stats will tell you that you've got to take fast action when somebody goes into cardiac arrest. I think 90% of the folks who go into cardiac arrest outside the hospital do not make it. But your chances double or triple if somebody takes quick action. So we know we want to do that. The second thing that we do is around education and awareness. So Anne is a nurse, registered nurse. She's been working with Project Save here in Atlanta, certified to now teach CPR and AED training. So we do that with community organizations, community groups, anybody who wants to learn. I'm a sidekick in that. I don't really, I don't bring much value to the teaching side. Anne does all that, but she's way better at that than I am. The other thing we said that SADS helps us with is on the awareness standpoint. There's so much material that they put their hands around, and we just take that material and amplify their voice, if you will. And then the third thing is around research. So I was really struck a couple weeks ago, actually it was your interview with Robert, as you guys were talking about what it looked like 20 years ago and how it was almost a death sentence when you had one of these arrhythmia disorders, and where it is today. And so as we think about that, how can we help advance research faster so we can get to where we are today quicker? And 10 years from now, it becomes really, we're very close to that now, but a treatable disease that you can go on and thrive in within. But that research is really critically important. And I think the Mayo Clinic in particular does great work, and your work around that is really important. So we contribute to that as well. So those are the three things that we do.
Great. Well, thanks for all three of those, and of course for your support to Mayo Clinic and the Winland Smith Rice Sudden Cardiac Death Program, where you've joined forces with Wendy's family to try to make a difference, and you're making a huge difference there with the AED training. You know, I think about last week, if you saw us, we gave away an AED thanks to Jeff Peacock and the One Beat CPR Foundation, and we work with an advocacy organization, LifeSure, which does a great job running interference with insurance companies to make the point that an AED ought to be part of the family safety gear for our families with genetic heart conditions. And yet every time we do that, I tell our families who have their children treated that still the answer is we've had 4 AED shocks in 700 treated children in 20 years. In other words, when we get them treated, like you just said, Kevin, we should basically never need this safety gear, but we have it. Just like we have my fire extinguisher in our house and I know where it is and I know how to pull the pin and aim and spray. We have this safety plan in place, and I think you probably see as you train these people up to be the next generation of first responders, just them feeling a part of this life-giving operation that you're conducting.
Yeah, I think just the fact that you can empower people to know what to do, to jump into action. People inherently want to help, but when you get into something like that, it's scary, right? And if you just don't have any awareness or anything around that, the likelihood you may not step in and help. And the reality is it's not that hard. You just have to teach people.
What would you like to see happen between now and 10 years from now that would make the LeMoyne family very pleased with the trajectory that this whole field and whole space is?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about that. I think I would like to see, I mean, we would like to see, you know, EKGs being, ECGs being, you know, part of a baseline physical. You know,
It's a question we always have, like, you know, Matthew never had an EKG. We wonder if, right? So that baseline would be something that we'd be interested in seeing as part of just a normal physical and protocol as kids grow up. That would be one. I think the other thing is the advancement around, you know, the research component of it. And there are so many unanswers. There's so much that we know, but there's so much that we don't know. And it's not going to change our circumstance, and it's not going to change the likelihood, as you said earlier, that in many cases another family member, or all cases really, another family member isn't affected, but it may just point out something to help us from the first, you know, family member being affected. And so for that, I think it's really that's kind of where we want to focus the future, is helping advance that research side of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you know, even though I think there's good news for you all and Nathan and your daughter, we still are going to work to provide closure that you deserve for Matthew's death. And if there is an answer to be found, you know, we're going to do everything we can to find it. And it's been interesting when we've solved a case some 20 years later, and you can imagine the kind of conversation you have with that family where you finally say, we found it, we figured it out. A lot of times we still are waiting for that answer to be found, but like many of the investigators throughout the world, we keep searching, and we certainly will keep searching for the LeMoyne family.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, thank you.
Your final words to people before we get ready to have me take a few questions. So if you're there on the sidebar and you have a question that you want me to grab in the final 15 minutes, I see 2 that I'm going to grab, but feel free to send another. But if you want to support the Lovin Every Day Foundation, We put it on the sidebar for you, anybody listening. It's www.lovin, Lovin every day, all one word, .org. And I'm sure there's a donate button there, and feel free to join Kevin and Anne in their life-saving mission as they've doing it through their foundation, but also partnering with us as amazing partners with the SADS Foundation. So I give Kevin and Anne the final word.
I always give Anne final words, so maybe you should.
I'll let you go ahead.
Well, we would just say thank you for the opportunity to come on and talk to you today. We always enjoy our time with all of the folks at SADS, and you in particular, Dr. Ackerman. I think knowledge is power, right? So our goal and our objective is to give people the knowledge that they need and to really live and thrive throughout their life. That's kind of what the point of this is, and we want to make sure that people they don't fear this whole CPR and AED part of the story, right? We want to empower people to go in and create action and potentially save a life. And if you can do that, man, that's a great story.
Yes. And I will just say,
I told you she gets
we want to give you the final word, and so I give the world Anne LeMoyne and the final word.
I just want to make one comment that I think your Facebook Lives have been invaluable to everybody. They're packed with a whole lot of fantastic information. So, how we've had to kind of rethink how we do things here, talk about silver linings with COVID, that it's definitely been a silver lining. So it's been great.
Well, Kevin and Anne, thanks so much for joining me, and everybody. I know you can put a virtual hand together and thank them, and go to lovineveryday.org and join them. And I wish you, Anne and Kevin, happy Halloween. I don't celebrate it personally, but my son does and his family. So
Yeah.
there's Tarzan and Jane and my little granddaughter Monkey. My oldest son, he's quite the character. Some say he's like his dad. But take care, you guys, and
so much.
have a wonderful rest of 2020. And I look forward to seeing you here sometime soon.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, blessings to you too. Well, I got a great question here from Carrie, and weren't the LeMoynes wonderful? They're amazing people, as all of you are. And Carrie's saying she's not familiar, but with long QT, do they normally not implant an ICD? So an AICD, an automatic internal cardioverter defibrillator, or an ICD, is normally not implanted. And I think that's the good news, is the vast majority of my patients do not need and should not receive an ICD. So if we look at all of my long QT patients, all 2,000 plus of them, we have a defibrillator strategy implanted in less than 15% of them. And so I think it's encouraging that most of our families and patients for that disease, long QT, don't need a defibrillator. Do you think it's necessary to own an external defibrillator if your child already has an internal defibrillator? Probably not. And some families get one anyway. But no, real answer, probably not. And that's one of the challenges. Is somebody asked the question, how do we join together to get insurance companies to accept that? I think Kara asked me that. Yeah. Is there anything we can do as a group to ensure that AEDs can be more easily covered by insurance? It's a challenge, and part of the challenge is because of what I just told everybody earlier. 4 rescue shocks in 4 of 700 treated children in the last 20 years. Insurance companies look at that and they say, doesn't look like this device is needed, not medical necessity. And so it's harder. But we see many companies, depends on your device, your equipment coverage policy, do cover them. LifeSure does an amazing job in helping our families throughout the country get AEDs, and they have a pretty high success rate with the insurance companies. So have your healthcare team partner with LifeSure like we do here at Mayo Clinic. There was another really good one earlier about, yeah, Jesse, that I liked your question, so I'm going to take it. Can Cpvt skip generations or family members? My mom and brother are ignoring that they should do genetic tests. You are positive for Cpvt, and 2 cousins, your aunt's children and an aunt, your mom's sister, died suddenly, probably during stress. Could it be that my mother does not have it, even though her sisters might have? Great question. Complicated a little bit, but basically a couple things that are for sure. With you having a positive genetic test for Cpvt, and with your aunt dying suddenly in suspicious circumstances, it is highly likely that your mom will have that Cpvt variant. Can't prove it, but I would put a fair bit of a money bet on it, and I don't bet. So, but what can skip generations is the expressivity in that sense. In other words, you might show an ECG on stress testing classic for Cpvt, and your mom might own the exact same Cpvt causative genetic variant, the mutation, and yet we put your mother on the stress test, and her stress test is clean as can be. No suggestion of the disease. So just because you own the genetic mutation doesn't mean it will declare itself the same way in each owner. Each owner kind of has a say in what the expressivity or what the show and tell with that variant is going to be. Bottom line is, when you own the mutation, all immediate relatives around that owner must get the genetic test to know where it came from. Did it come from your mother or father or start new in you? So we had a question just after yours, Jesse, where Delaney has a spontaneous mutation for RYR2. And so it can start new in you. And in fact, in Cpvt, there is a higher rate of new in you mutations than for some of the long QT mutations, for example, where in Cpvt, about 10% of the time, it is a new in you. Started in Delaney after conception, and now it's Delaney and her future children's potential issue, not mom, dad, siblings, in almost all situations when the mechanism is like that. So great question. There's another question. I don't want, want to prove the AED. We just have to keep fighting that. Robin, I'd love to spend some time, and maybe we will on a future session, about the ECG and where are we with the ECG being a universal screening test for the early detection of sudden death predisposing heart conditions. We're not there yet. I know Kevin and Anne mentioned it as well. What would there have been an answer there in the ECG had Matthew had one at some point in his life? There is no recommendation yet from any of the major cardiac societies in the world, in the United States, by the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, or even the SADS Foundation yet to advise universal ECG screening. Having said that, I think we're getting close. It may not look like the ECG, but I believe personally that we should have universal screening for the early detection of long QT syndrome in all humans. Will that be the ECG where you go in the office to get an ECG or EKG? Will it take a different form? Time will tell. Stay tuned. There's some really exciting developments that we can talk about hopefully in the near future. But it is not a society, as in cardiac society, approved recommendation for us to do ECG screening. yet. So stay tuned for that. Let me see. I'll take one last question. And then again, next week, keep the questions coming. But here's the final one from Erica. I like this one. Your daughter, I don't like the combination, but it's going to be fine. But every once in a while, you get a 2-for-1 special where you have more than one mutation. And in this case, Erica's daughter has Cpvt that she got from mom, long QT 4 from her dad. Can you say anything about the combination? This is probably going to need a much longer conversation in the future, but it really depends on what's the strength of the evidence for both genetic variants. So yes, I have seen patients who have LQT1 and LQT2, Cpvt and LQT1, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and LQT2. So you can get doubles, multiple hits. And of course, if you get LQT1 from mom and LQT1 from dad, both of them asymptomatic, but the combination can create a child who has bad long QT1 and deafness. And that's the rare 1 in 2 million syndrome called Jervell and Lang-Nielsen syndrome. But in your situation, I'm going to throw I'm a little skeptical flag up, because once you start moving to the minor genes, LQT4, 5, 6, 7, 15, 16, 17, you have to stare at that genetic test result really carefully and say, how convinced are we that this alleged mutation, in this case, ANK2, that might underlie LQT4, is it the real deal? Or might we have overinterpreted the genetic findings? So it's possible that your daughter has both, or that it's just Cpvt, and that LQT4 thing, pour a little cold water on that, maybe not. But I haven't even seen the genetic variant, just from personal experience, having done this for just a few times now, and I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night. I'm a little bit skeptical for that. Well, let's try to look into that closer together, either offline or at a broader conversation. Genetic test and interpreting genetic test, and what are some of the challenges. We might do that a little bit a week from tomorrow. So you could all join us for our International SADS Foundation video conference. We were going to be at Texas Children's Hospital with Dr. Kim hosting us for our next live one. It was going to be November, but it got coroned. But we have decided to take it virtual. And so the virtual conference, register for it, is November 7th. I'll join you for a little bit. Going to have a great talk from Susan Etheridge and Prince Knackrell at Vanderbilt on some of the latest advances in terms of treatments and things of that nature. And then we're going to have a question and answer session of a much longer duration with yours truly. So join us for November 7th. Already 300 have registered, and maybe you can too. And so check out the SADS Foundation website to get information to how to register, and you can tell your friends and tell your family. That's about it. Now, I do want to show you one thing. You know, my granddaughter, she did turn, I told you that, right? She did turn 9 months, but I'm doing something that I haven't done for 8 months exactly. My last flight was February 28, coming back from Grand Rounds JFK, but I'm heading on a plane in 2 hours for my first flight to go see this guy. This is my number 2 son. Oh, Nicky. He's working on a ranch in Montana, 23 years old out there, single, an amazing kid, and he's missing his daddy a little bit. So I'm going to quick zip out there, spend the day with him tomorrow, fly back Sunday. I'll have my mask on. You can believe I'm a little bit nervous, but why should I be nervous? Many of my patients have been flying to come see me, so there's no reason for me to fear. And after all, hashtag refuse to fear. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Tell your friends about SADS Facebook Live. Share this link when it's posted. And until then, mask on. Get yours. Oh, yep. Wash hands. Keep strong, everyone. Let's stay corona free for as long as we can. And we have got to get this curve to come down, or there's going to be a lot of activities halted or reverse course or shut down. And we can't have that. Time to press on, everybody. Stay well. Blessings to you all, and I'll see you next month.